massive thank you for being here today. Of course, this is No More Jump, More Be Safe. We're going to be delving into technology in the sport, how it's driven it forwards, where we are today, and where we want to take it forwards into the future with a project we've been working on over the last 6 months, which we're really sort of excited to announce and see what your thoughts and feelings are on it. So my name's Jon McCallum. I've been a skydiver for over a decade now. I'm a professional software engineer, and that's kind of my background coming into this. Yeah, come on in, guys, no worries. Lovely. Come on in, guys, come on in, it's all good. Or not. Brilliant, so. Excellent, so. Hey, cool. Hey, that's Ross. Everyone say hi to Ross. Hey, dude, how's it going? Cheers, man. Good man, thank you. So, technology, what does it mean? It comes from the Greek word techne, which means, it does mean skill, cunning or handiwork, which is very representative of a lot of the developments that we've had in the sport, especially over the last century. And I want to start off by looking at how far we've come. And I think it's only natural when we hold something like the sport so close to our hearts, as I imagine you're all skydivers in here, at least I hope you are because you're at the Skydiving Expo, that we're going to be imagining where the sport's going to be in the next decade, in the next century, and much further. What path are we going to pave for upcoming generations of future skydivers? And I don't think we should be thinking about the next year or the next decade, but the long-living legacy that we want to live for people who are to come in the future of the sport. So, I'm just going to start off with going through a very quick timeline of specific technological developments we've had that have really made the sport what it is today. So in 1490, over 500 years ago, we have the first recorded parachute design by our man, Leonardo da Vinci. Never met him, I've heard he's a good chap there. Jumping forward 300 years, we have the actual first recorded parachute jump.
John,
hello.
I'm really sorry, we can't get in any other door, there's loads of people here.
Guys, come in, come in. It's absolutely fine. The more the better.
Faster, faster. We're going to come in heckle. We're really sorry. It's brilliant.
That's all good.
Start from the beginning again.
This is Detonate, part of Detonate, 8-way team. Love them. Big round of applause. That's all right.
Sorry, John.
That's all right. See you later.
Horrible. Nothing against you.
1783, the first documented parachute jump under some kind of umbrella-shaped contraption, originally done with the intention of saving people's lives in burning buildings. Bringing it forward to the 20th century, we have the invention of the static line, which then went on to the invention of the ripcord in 1908. Now, this wouldn't actually then go on to be used for another decade. In the 1930s, we have the first successful wingsuit jump, which was a lot earlier than I expected when I was researching this, but it really goes to show that we have been dreaming of flying for a very long time. In 1955, we have our first steerable parachutes. Now, round parachutes were around for a lot longer than this. They came around in the sort of war era, Second World War, First World War. But this is the first time we're seeing actual innovations being done on top of this. Which leads on to 1962, where we have the innovation of the ram air parachute and the sort of introduction to that to the sport, which really opened the doors for much more accurate landings and less landings in trees. In the 1980s, we have the introduction of the three-ring system, made it a lot easier for people to safely cut away from malfunctioning parachutes. And in 1983, we have the first tandem jump with a tandem system, which really opened the doors for many more people to get involved and experience the sport. In the 1990s, we have the Vigil and the Cypress being released to the market. We're seeing the innovation of the computerized and sort of data age coming in and being integrated to really push forward the safety of our equipment. And in 1994, we have the advent of the Vector 3, which was the world's first free-fly friendly rig. Into the 2000s, 2003, we have the Skyhook, which is the world's first MARD. For those of you who don't know, it is a main assisted reserve deployment device. And from the 2000 onwards, we have had many, many different exciting technological things happening. From the ways that we use our equipment to how we train. We've got online learning platforms, software for different ways of managing how drop zones run and how we manage our pieces. Ways we train in the wind tunnel. And there's one that's some of you might have seen, but there's a couple of companies that are pushing forward virtual reality training systems for parachuting, which I think is going to be a really big one to keep our eyes on over the next few years, because I think this is really going to change how we train students. Now, what have been the main focuses over the last century? I believe, personally, they've been threefold from what I can see. So we've been focusing on safety innovations, expansion of what's possible, and the enhancement of performance. And there's been a lot behind this, and I believe that's been threefold as well. We've seen the accumulation of knowledge through shared experience, innovation through people seeing problems, solving problems, and then having the courage to push them forwards and try out new things, and also data, because we live in the data age now. We're using data to propel us forwards, collect information about what's going on, what can be improved, and how we can make positive changes in the sport. Now, the sport is still a relatively young sport. It's not been around for as long as other adventure sports that occur on the land and the sea, not the sky, because these sports have been around for a lot longer. They've had a lot more time and people power to push them forward, to work on safety protocols, equipment standards, and getting a lot better way of training people to do things safely. Now, skydiving, we are catching up rapidly, and it's a really exciting time because there's a lot still to be discovered, and a lot for us to innovate, and a lot to push the sport forwards. Now, I'd like to see a raise of hands if, like this guy up here who's clearly enjoying his jump, you love skydiving. It's pretty much everyone. That's a good thing. Cool. Now, raise your hands again if you enjoy skydiving without equipment. That pretty much sums up the importance of equipment in our sport. It's the one thing between us and leaving a mark or a dent on this earth. So, equipment's incredibly important. And modern equipment manufacturers have assured us that it's state-of-the-art, it's safe to use, and it's the best it can be. But that's only if it's configured correctly, it's maintained correctly, and used in the correct way as well. And to prove that, in the UK specifically, we have two main ways of doing that, and that's through documentation. And that will be on the data card of that equipment and the record of inspection, which is done every time you have an inspection or a repack. Now, tandem equipment is a slightly different ballgame, and that's because we're dealing with the general public. And now, the general public, we also have the lives of two people in the hands of one. So the documentation we keep for this equipment is a lot more in depth. For example, we've got the record of inspection, specifically for tandem equipment. We've got the blue book, which some of you might have seen at drop zones, which is the 100 jump log and 100 jump inspection. And we've also got the modification and repair log for the tandem kit. But that extends further to the actual student harness itself, which has got its own documentation for the airworthiness inspection and any modifications or repairs that have been done to that too. And I've worked at Go Skydive for several years, and we had several sets, well, more than several, like 25 plus sets of tandem equipment at one point. And as you can imagine, managing all of this documentation is going to take one person a lot of late nights and can quite often end up feeling like this. Hello, come on in, guys. Now, paperwork is crucial. We can't forget how important it is because it exists for a reason. As we said earlier, it's to make sure that the kit is safe to use, it's maintained, and it's configured correctly. But it has its drawbacks. It takes its time, it takes time to fill out, it's prone to human error, and there's a significant amount of data that ends up trapped on this paperwork inside the equipment. And with that data being trapped inside this equipment, it's very difficult for us to have the full picture of what's happening to the equipment, not only in the UK, but across the world. Let's look at an example. Imagine we have two canopies that have just come onto the market in the last year. We've got Canopy A and we've got Canopy B. They're very, very similar to each other. Now in the UK, we've got a fantastic incident reporting system. Whenever there's a malfunction, the drop zone will report this to British Skydiving, and with that incident report will go a lot of information, who it happened to, or who caused it, what equipment it happened on, and lots of other stuff as well. So from that, we can draw interesting statistics. We can find out that, let's say in a given year, Canopy A had 10 malfunctions and Canopy B had 20 malfunctions. Now, on the surface, this seems to be interesting. So, just a quick show of hands if you'd prefer to jump Canopy A, if you were choosing a canopy that you'd want to jump.
You can't tell that information.
Exactly. So, the thing is that we don't have the complete picture. What we're missing is the actual population statistics of how many different types of these canopies exist, how often they're being jumped, where they're being used. And if we were able to tell that, as a matter of fact, Canopy A has done 100 jumps in this year, and Canopy B has done 500 jumps, that dramatically changes the statistics. And we can see there's quite a significant difference in the actual percentage rate of malfunction across these canopies. And that's significant. And that's going to allow us to make much better educated decisions about the equipment that's being used. And on a more relatable level, so I'm sure a lot of you recognise this scene. That's Lucy. So this is a Kitndocs check at a drop zone. You turn up to a drop zone for the first time with your equipment and documents. They want to see your kit. They want to see the documentation for that kit. Not only do they want to see that, they want to see things such as your self-declaration medical, your membership, your license, and your logbook, all to prove that you are who you say you are and you're qualified to take part in the sport safely. Right, so once they've seen the documentation for your kit, they'll also be asking questions about your relation to that kit. Specifically things like, what is the main and what size is it? What's your wing loading on that main? And how many jumps have you done on it? These are all questions to find out how you relate to your kit, do you know enough about it, and are you safe to be jumping it? This is all especially prevalent over the last couple of years where we've seen the advent of the canopy sizing chart and the wing loading chart. So my question is, how long does it take to check all that? And sometimes it can be really quick, sometimes it can be quite a slow process. I've been a cameraman at competitions before where I've had 2 sets of kit, 2 sets of documentation, a tanner will go out, 4 Kitndocs checks, everybody will make a beeline for reception, and you'll be waiting there for a while, and suddenly an incident happens, and everyone that was supposed to be checking Kitndocs has gone off to deal with something else. And I'm there, not having had my Kitndocs check done, hoping I'm not going to have to buy the beers because I can't get on the first lift for that 4-way team. Now, I don't think we have the time in the UK to be spending more time than we need on these things because, frankly, we don't have the weather for it. And my other question is, where and how is my data being stored? Because from a software development background, I've got awareness, there are sort of like things going on that at every drop zone I go to, somehow either a copy of that documentation and data is being made and stored in lots of different places, whether that's on spreadsheets, internal systems, photocopies, and lots of different booklets and all sorts of things. And that's just an interesting one. So the fact is that we live in the modern digital age. There's ever-growing technological solutions, much greater reliance on these things, and that's just really got us thinking, with all this paperwork, there must be a better way. And that's why for the last 6 months, we've been working on Kitndocs. So, Kitndocs, it's going to be a software solution. I'll go into that very shortly. But who's it going to be for? It's simply going to be for everybody that's involved in the sport. Whether it's an organisation within the sport, like a national governing body, businesses involved in the sport, drop zones, riggers, all the way down to skydivers and all the way up to people on the outside of the sport, such as insurers and things like that as well. Who's behind it? So, of course, myself, Jon. I've already introduced myself, and Chris as well. Chris has been a software developer for a very long time. He works in the financial technology industry with banks, so he knows his stuff. I don't need to go too much into that. And our main drive ties in very nicely with the title of this presentation, is we want everybody to know more, jump more, and be safe. And by knowing more, we want to empower everybody with knowledge. We want to elevate innovation in the sport through awareness and comprehensive data and insights, fostering a community where everybody is rich in understanding and equipped for progress. We want everybody to jump more. We want people to spend more time in the air doing what they love and less time on the ground looking for missing paperwork or dealing with issues like that. But most importantly is we want people to be safe, because without being safe, we can't continue to take part in the sport. We want to make sure that every jump is backed up with well-informed documentation, ensuring everything is safe, and we want to utilise data to make big safety improvements within the sport. So what's it going to be? Primarily, it's going to be a mobile app, but it's also going to be a web app. But on the back end of everything, it's going to be a database of information. We want everybody to have a profile on this system, whether that's an individual skydiver like yourselves, a governing body, drop zones, businesses, and manufacturers, because we want to create an ecosystem where everybody can collaborate and share this information. Firstly, we're going to take all of your personal documentation, we're going to collect that together and we're going to digitize it with your expiry dates, archive documentation, and we're going to allow you to have ownership of that all in one place. And the beauty of having this all in one place is that it will be really easy to share with the people that need to see it and want to see it. And for places that haven't quite got on board with the system yet, you'll be able to email it out or you'll be able to share it directly within the system. So for example, drop zones. Every drop zone you go to at the moment has an individual process for checking you off or checking your documentation, making sure that you're valid to jump with your kit. We want to create a system where if you become validated at, say, 3 drop zones, that's pretty good evidence that that set of kit and documentation you've got is valid to be jumped within the jurisdiction that these drop zones operate within. And also, membership verification. Some of you might jump with different national governing bodies. If you go abroad, you jump at USPA drop zone. Now, these national governing bodies, British Skydiving especially, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the AGM, do a lot of work for the sport, especially behind the scenes. There's a lot of voluntary work that goes in, and there's a lot going on. If we, in the future, can offload the weight of having to deal with memberships and allow these national governing bodies to focus on improving the sport in other ways, we'd be really happy to do that, because this can be our core focus and we can allow them to do other stuff for the sport. Now, we've spoken about personal documentation, but also we can't forget the importance of kit. So the majority of components in your rig have a serial number, and we can take that serial number because that's unique to your kit, and we can create a digital twin of your equipment on the system. And this is really interesting because by also creating twins of your container, your reserve, your main canopy and your AED, all serialized components, we can create a really comprehensive profile of all the information that you need to know about your equipment. Whether that's its documentation, serial numbers, manuals, safety bulletins, all of that stuff in one place that originally to find out, you'd have to go rooting through your documentation and looking this all up online. But there's a lot of stuff as well that doesn't have a serial number. So we've introduced the idea of a Kitndocs number, which is specific to Kitndocs, and is going to be a completely unique serial number generated for anything entered into the system. So for things that aren't serialized, like helmets, LTs, and helmets, for example, I sometimes dread, I don't know about you all, but I sometimes dread to think about the amount of equipment that I own and how much I've spent on that, and the fact that I've got no way to prove that I own any of that equipment other than a Sharpie mark, which can be easily rubbed off. But by putting everything onto the system, we can provide a proof of ownership and also ownership history, very similar to the way that we can prove how many owners a car has had in its history through the DVLA in the UK. And what's fantastic about this is that now we know who owns that equipment, we can make sure that you are well informed about everything that's going on with that. So for example, when your kit's due for a repack, we want to be able to notify you several days before that's due, so you can be on top of it, because everyone's got really busy schedules. If your equipment goes missing and someone finds it, we want you to be able to notify that person to say, hey, I found your kit, or it's been stolen. If someone tries to use your stolen kit at a drop zone, then you're going to get a ping to say that's the case. And also, safety bulletins. The current process for issuing safety bulletins to the end users of the kit can be quite sluggish. And we think it's really important, if a critical issue is found with a set of equipment, we want the end user of that equipment to know as soon as possible. So that kit can be quarantined, it can be taken offline, the repairs can be done, and everyone can be safe. And we also want to streamline maintenance. So there are a lot of riggers and advanced packers in the UK doing a lot of work on our kit. It's fantastic, but we want to offer the people that want to get involved in this a really easy way that when your repack's due, you can very easily book it in with someone that's got availability through the system. And also digital inspections. So a lot of garages have introduced this. You'll find you take your car in for an inspection, and they'll take photos of any issues with it, and that will all go into a report card, and that will immediately go out to the owner of that equipment. And now this is fantastic because you can see what's wrong with your kit. There can be evidence of repairs that have been done, and this is all available in one place. But this also allows us to start building analytics of patterns and seeing what common repairs are being done to which types of kit, if there are common issues, and what patterns we can draw from this. And if we can see that, we can feed that back to the manufacturers, and we can give them really valuable information on how they can look at improving their manufacturing processes to going forwards. And now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen kit stores that look like this. There's a lot of equipment. It's a lot of it, you've got student equipment sometimes, kit stores for rental kit, tandem kit, but also solo sport skydiver kit. And managing all that can be quite tricky sometimes. And a lot of places have started adopting the tagging system. So when you go and have your Kitndocs check done, you'll have a tag added to your kit. You can see I've already got 3 here on my rig, and it's starting to look quite busy. What we'd like to do is we'd like to simplify all that and just put it into one tag. So you can see this rig is registered with Kitndocs, and all that information can be accessed online. Now, we want to take that a step further. I'm sure a lot of you have used contactless payments before. You've seen this everywhere. It's been around for a long time now. And that's powered by NFC technology, which is near-field communication. And near-field communication is a way of transferring data over a distance of about 4 centimetres. And that occurs on these chips, which are discrete, they're battery-free, they're wireless, and they're unique. And now, before we move to the next bit, I just need to make a bit of a disclaimer. We don't want to be attaching anything to equipment without having it approved first. We're in talks at the moment to make sure this is done properly and approved for the right channels. So bear with us, we are working on this, but it's something we hope to be looking at soon. So what we want to do is we want to attach these chips to each set of kit, and with a wave or a tap of a smartphone, you instantly have access to all of the information and documentation for that kit. So you turn up to a drop zone now, you ask the Kitndocs check, someone comes up with a phone, checks it, boom, it's all in date. And that takes all of the data that's locked away in the report cards and reserve inspections and serial numbers in this kit and unlocks all of that immediately just with the power of a smartphone. So we've got a lot more planned, but unfortunately we don't have all day to go into it. We've just sort of scratched the tip of the iceberg, but there's just some of the other things we'd like to do on the screen here. We'd like to open up a marketplace, kit management for drop zones. We want to tie it to a logbook, lost and found membership renewals, instant reporting, all sorts of things. But one thing I really want to touch upon is data security and privacy. We're a third party. Kitndocs is completely removed from any other organisation, business or anything in the sport, so we can make this our sole focus. It's a lot more prevalent in the 21st century. There's a lot more focus being done on this, especially with the rise of things like GDPR. We're going to be using advanced encryption, so everybody's data is going to be completely safe and secure. You're going to have complete privacy control, so you're going to be able to choose who sees your data, when they see it, and where that is shared. There are going to be no more redundant copies. All of your documentation is going to be in one place. There's going to be no more emails sending it off to different people, making paper copies and all that sort of stuff. We're going to be compliant with GDPR. Of course, we're a UK-based company, so everything's going to be done to the top notch. We're also going to be performing regular security audits, and we're going to have approval-based access. So only people that are on the system, for example, approved drop zones who have proved who they are, will be able to see this documentation. So what we want to do, we're well aware, both coming from a tech background, that if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, especially in the early stages of technological solutions. So if we imagine our current system of paper-based documentation as being a donkey pulling a cart, it gets the job done, it gets us from A to B. We want to come along and we want to put an engine on that cart, and we want to make improvements to that engine as we go along, until we get to a point where we can say, hey, donkey, you've done a brilliant job, but it's time for us to take over. We don't want to remove everything because this system is working well already. It's ambitious. There's a lot for us to plan, there's a lot for us to do, but this has only really come through from lots of conversations on lots of drop zones, sort of drawing together the pain points that we've heard from different people we've spoken to, as far as Norway and the US. And the fact of the matter is that we don't know what we don't know yet. There are lots of brilliant minds in this room, and there are many, many more brilliant minds in the sport in general. So we need everybody, we need the feedback of everyone. We want to know what your pain points are, your thoughts, your feelings, your deepest, darkest desires. And please feel free to reach out. We're going to be as available as possible online. We've got a website as well. If you want to hop on there, you can subscribe to our email list, and we'll be notifying when we are releasing stuff. But yeah, that's everything. It's a lot of information. Hopefully it's sort of given a bit of an idea for everyone about where we want to push things. And yeah, we're open for questions now. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, good man.
Yeah, I did have one question. You know, when you say about the Kitndocs, each piece of kit that I've got a serial number can be attributed,
Yeah, you said about the Kitndocs with each piece of kit that doesn't have a serial number can be attributed to a person. Would that be when buying and selling kit between each other just a simple name change?
Yeah, so we're actually working, the solution we've done for this is we've actually got an ownership record. So you'll be able to see how many owners the set of kit has had, and you'll be able to transfer that ownership within the system as well.
Yeah, okay, brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any more for any more? Yeah, a couple done it.
With the NFC plans, is that just on the rig itself or on the individual pieces of equipment?
Good question.
Keep track?
So it can be on every single individual component, but mainly we're just planning on starting with the rig itself, because if you scan the rig, you can see all the components that exist inside that rig. But then, for example, if you've got your main out already, chances are you can see the serial number. But if you wanted to, there's nothing stopping in the future, of course, when we get this approved. Cool.
Hi.
Hello.
Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
Really nice branding and great delivery. So
Thank you.
well done on that. What's the cost?
Completely free.
Really?
So yeah, so free for skydivers. It's going to be free for everyone. Of course, this is kind of like a labour of love. But of course, there are things like hosting costs and all this stuff that runs in the background. So we're going to be working with different organisations within the industry. There's going to be nice to have features, sort of things that are going to make running a drop zone easier or selling your kit easier, which are going to be sort of potentially paid features in the future. But the core features of having your kit and documentation registered is going to be completely free.
Awesome. How long until it's on the market?
Oh, good question. Good question. So we're aiming to have a mobile app out within about 6 months. And then, of course, the web app, which is going to be more for business management, drop zone management for multiple sets of the kit, maybe a bit longer. But this is what we want to hear from you guys, because if we can see there are more problems that need solving, that's where we'll focus our attention.
So, have you had what conversations you had with the DZOs? I mean, typically, if I turned up with a digital image of my reserve card, they'd go, "Nah, go away."
Okay.
So, you've had that conversation?
Yes. So we've been in talks with one drop zone, for example, and two drop zones actually. So it's a really good question. It's a really good question because it touches on the fact that what is more valid, a piece of paper or a digital document? Because a piece of paper, realistically, your photocopy can be made of it, it can be copied, anyone can make a signature on there. But if we've got a digital system where everything that happens in that system is linked to the person that did that action, who signed that paperwork, when that happened, we personally believe that it's going to be quite easy to convince the DZOs once we're able to explain it, because it's a lot more of an auditable system than we currently have on the paper-based things.
As a chief instructor, in case anybody didn't know.
Fantastic.
That's kind of the area. It's just like with any shared system that we have, like the tags on the rigs. Well, you know, it was tagged at Langer. Why have I got to do Kitndocs at Headcorn? I don't know what they looked at. I don't know the standardisation thing. So when you said once it's been checked 3 times, then it activates kind of thing, then that's kind of, that worked for me, because it is that thing about, well, who can change the data? So who can change the reserve date?
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, you know, when it was checked at Langer, it got 2 days to go. When it goes to Headcorn, suddenly it's miraculously changed. Well, who can access that? And if the owner of the kit can change those things, how do we verify that?
Perfect. Really good question. So we want to, British Skydiving has got an API. It's basically a system where we'll be able to verify membership and qualifications to do things in certain countries. Now, we want to make it so that that sort of data that you're talking about is only accessible to people who have a vested legal interest in it, for example, for the safety of their own drop zone in business. Because if I'm a drop zone, then I want to be able to have access for that, like you said. In question to actually changing that equipment, that was something we spoke about, because you're absolutely right. If you're an owner of the kit, you could just switch out bits and pieces. But we want to be able to put locks in place to say that these changes to the equipment have been done by people that have been proven through the British Skydiving system to be qualified to be doing that. So that is a really interesting technical challenge, but that's one of those things that, because we're focused on doing this and this only, we can really put a lot of effort into solving. And it would be fantastic to speak to you afterwards as well about sort of anything else you might have, because that would be brilliant. Thank you. Any more?
Yeah, really great presentation.
Thank
And
you.
just following on from that one, actually, just I guess how much have you spoken to British Skydiving? How on board are they with this? You know, will they get on board at that 6-month timeline? Or
So we have been in talks with some parts of British Skydiving. Nothing majorly official yet. Yeah, of course, go for it, Craig. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Craig. I'm a director on board at British Skydiving. I also work in IT, professional software developer, and one of my responsibilities at British Skydiving has been for some of the IT decisions at British Skydiving. So if you do want to blame anyone about PIMS and the membership system, I'm the guy to come to. But rest assured, anyway, let's not talk about that. So John and I have had some discussions about this, and I've offered my assistance to him from what I know and from a technical perspective. I'm very excited by this. Some people know I'm technology, and my interest in British Skydiving has always been about technology and how it will benefit the association. I'm annoyed that we haven't done something like this already 20 years ago, and I said this to John, that as he said, we've many brilliant minds in the sport, and a collaborative effort, or people who've got the drive and the desire and the knowledge and the expertise to go ahead and do that. That's brilliant, because it benefits us all. British Skydiving can only do so much. Our expertise is in safety management of skydiving, not in the technology for doing this sort of stuff, which is where we come a little bit unstuck with membership systems, but that's a whole other story. Long story short, so yeah, John and I are in discussion. I'm only one small part of British Skydiving. I'm a director. I'm one of the members of the board, so I can't make any decisions alone. But as you can tell, I'm very excited by this, enthusiastic about it. So I will be pushing it as much as I can from an association side, because it benefits everyone. And it's if somebody else is going to do it and do it well, it takes the burden off the association, it takes the burden off the drop zones, it takes the burden off everyone. So yeah, I'll do what I can to help that path with us as an association.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Awesome. Any more? Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been awesome. Cheers. Awesome.